What's up, everybody? Welcome to the SWAT MMA podcast. This is episode number 148. I'm Jarrod here with Paul.
What up?
Coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. Today, we talking boxing. Does Savannah Marshall have a chance of beating Clarissa Shields again in their historic showdown? Did George Kambosos learn anything from his loss to Devin Haney that gives him a shot at winning his titles back in the rematch? And if Wilder beats Helenius this weekend, will Usyk bypass Fury and pick him for the next title shot? Plus, we'll take a preview at the upcoming UFC Fight Night. But before we get to the combat sports, y'all know what time it is. Grab your stash, fire it up. Let's get into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
Ooh, this week's Weed of the Week is brought to you by our sponsor, Binoid CBD, where you can get the best in CBD and legal hemp cannabinoids, from vape cartridges, disposables, gummies, tinctures, dabs, and more. You can get the best 20% off deal from them on our website, SWATMMA.com. Go to the cool stuff button. Follow the links from there. Now, what are we smoking on today, Paul?
So today we are smoking on some apple tarts. So apple tarts is a hybrid cross between apple fritter and runts. It's created by Clearwater Genetics.
Okay.
It's a real hefty THC one. You're looking at about 26 to 28%.
Very nice. We've been kind of sticking with these apple fritter strains here. We've had started off with the apple fritter a few months ago. Then we brought in the apple driver for a little while, which was fritter crossed with the Sunday driver. Now we're coming in with this crossed with the runts. It's a real pretty looking weed. A lot of purple, a lot of pink in there.
Cool thing about this weed as well, it has also been put up for strains of the summer by Leafly, which is a pretty big marijuana.
Yeah, that's
website.
a good honor to have your strain put up for that.
Mm-hmm. So, smoking on some award-winning cannabis today.
Well, I'm liking this a lot. This is very smooth. It's got a nice aftertaste.
Yep.
Pretty heady. I can feel it already. We were hitting that bowl a couple times before the show, following up with this joint here. Pretty nice. Hoping if you're joining us in smoking, whether it's you're in a legal state or country, or perhaps you've got some products from Binoid that you're partaking in, hope it's delicious as well. Now, unless you got something else to say about this weed, I want to start off with the UFC. What do you think?
Oh, good.
Look, man, let's just be honest. No disrespect to these fighters. This is a terrible card. There's really not a lot to talk about here.
Not a ton to dive into about this card.
Last week's card for the UFC was not very good either.
Yeah. They tend to do this in front of these large, big, kind of milestone pay-per-views. Like, we have this one on October 20th, with Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev, which could be, pretty big one for the outlook on the lightweight division.
Absolutely.
I just feel like they tend to do this sometimes. But let's kind of just go down this the best we can. So in the main event, we have a women's flyweight bout between Alexa Grosso and Vivian Ariuzzo.
Well, this is number 5 versus number 6. This is actually a pretty important bout as far as the rankings in the division go.
Mm-hmm. Two good contenders, both coming off wins. I mean, Grosso is kind of part of this, her, Brandon Moreno, and, Ariuzzo, Aldana, and a lot of these different, fighters that have come from Mexico that we've seen kind of just make their niche in the UFC, because before Mexico was such a, big boxing country that now we're starting to see some of these MMA prospects come up. It's good to see, you know what I mean?
I agree with everything you said, and obviously the UFC likes to exploit that connection as much as possible. Yeah. I like Alexa in this fight, though. That's just a gut feeling. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to see Grosso win this one as well.
I mean, I guess that they're headlining
2-1
this
favorite
card
right
due
now.
to rankings. I'm not really sure
Yeah.
because I don't know how much longer are we going to have Cub Swanson fighting with us. Do you think? I don't think it's going to be too much longer. The
Yeah.
guy's getting up there. He's not ranked. I get that, but honestly, I would have liked to see him get the headlining shot here, or even the men's flyweight with the Askarov and Brendan Royval fight. It's just I don't know, those just seem more exciting to me. And maybe that's just because women's flyweight has such a dominant champion in it. I don't think
Yeah.
either one of those two ladies has a chance of beating Valentina Shevchenko. So
Yeah.
it just makes the whole division feel kind of stale sometimes and less exciting, which is unfair to them, but it's the reality of what I'm feeling. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. Unfortunately,
I mean,
it's nothing against them. It's more. I also feel like the Askarov Royval fight has more consequences to it as well. You know what I mean?
yeah, if you look at the division and how
Where it's
it's
at,
panning
yeah.
out, yeah, there's, we're going to finally put Figueiredo and Moreno behind us with this fourth fight. And that opens the door for some interesting prospects here between these two guys. Like, we could be looking at a title shot here from this fight.
Absolutely, because also when you look down the division, you got someone like Kai France who's already fought Moreno twice and came up short. So, they're probably not going to, if Moreno were to win, they're not going to schedule that right away.
Mm-mm.
You're looking at Askarov, who actually got fought Moreno to a draw. And, so that could be, if he were to pull this out, that could be the next title fight very easily.
Who do you think wins between Askarov and Brandon here?
I think Askarov pulls it off. I think that last fight where he was unable to, he won a split decision loss against Kai France. Like, that was so close. He was so close to that title shot. I think this is his big opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And despite what we just said, I'm not that excited by this fight either. This whole card feels just like a bummer to me. I don't know. And I feel like this is probably could be Cub Swanson's last fight, and I don't really like them matching him up with Jonathan Martinez.
Yeah, you got Jonathan Martinez, who's a pretty good prospect at this bantamweight division. He's 5-1 in the UFC. This is literally the biggest Shark Tank in the UFC. If you really look at it, is bantamweight. You got so many. Not being ranked in this division is not like something like too bad. He should, in other divisions. Martinez is the kind of fighter who would be ranked, but this fight with Cub Swanson, I feel like this is his chance to kind of put himself on the map.
I don't really like Cub at 135 anyways.
Yeah.
And Martinez cuts down from a very, I mean, he's bigger than Swanson and is walking around.
Sure.
Didn't he say on Rogan he cuts down from 180 something?
Yeah, I think it's like 170.
By that, we don't mean he cuts down 24 hours before.
Yeah,
like
obviously.
Water weight
yeah,
cut,
he walks around.
But during camp, like he's walking around, and then in his camp, he's hitting there, not Paddy Pimblett style.
Yeah.
But like just a bigger
guy. Yeah. I think Martinez gets the job done here.
Yeah, I don't want to say it, but they're just going to do the classic. It's what the UFC does. It shouldn't be surprising. I mean, it's MMA. It's how it works.
It's a leap pad for Well, I think that's really all that we can necessarily talk about on this fight night. I mean, there's a couple other sort of good fights. I mean, you got Alonzo Menefield versus Mirza Sirkunov, but like I said, that's a good fight for the hardcores, but there's really nothing there that's gonna be of any kind of real title implications or some kind of ranking. You know what I mean?
No. Before we move into boxing, this is a boxing heavy weekend. I did mention Paddy Pimblett. I noticed that he's back in fight camp after hitting just an astronomical weight, over 210.
Yeah.
I mean, did you see that final picture of him? His face is it's a circle.
Yeah.
Like, he's fat as fuck, dude. What do you think of that? I mean, it's one thing. All fighters do some sort of weight fluctuation. We were just talking about the guy, going up to 180 and cut down to 35, but he's not doing it like Paddy Pimblett is eating 10,000 calories a meal and just gaining fat. He's not like a muscular guy. He's not maintaining his athletic body. He's kind of like John Jones used to be. You remember Jones used to do that shit too. He posts some pictures of him with his pot belly.
In retrospect, Jones was partying his ass off, and that's what he was like.
He wasn't eating like this. Like, this kid's packing on like 50 pounds of literal fat and then shedding it all off with exercise.
I mean, I don't know. I don't fucking know. I don't know. As long as he still makes weight, the day he misses weight, it'll be a problem. That's
Just
all
seeing his body transformation is wild, dude.
It is, yeah.
It's not like a lot of these other guys who they just look like maybe more muscular or maybe slightly overweight, maybe a little bit compared to how they look on Fight Night. Like this kid, you wouldn't think he's an athlete when you see him. You'd be like, no, he's not. Look at what he's eating. Look how round he is.
Well,
and do you think that's going to put some long-term detriment to his fight career?
Not necessarily, because we haven't seen like his gas tank really get like he's never like punched himself out. He's smart in the way he fights. Like, I just don't really. I think it's so funny at this point. Like,
well, I tell you, that's a young man's game. Once you cross a certain fucking age, like he goes over 30, and trying that shit is gonna be a lot harder, dog.
If he fights that long, he's the kind of guy. He's in to make the money and get out.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of that, there's one other thing that we didn't discuss, but I want to mention real quick along these lines is what the fuck with Kevin Holland?
Yeah, that
retired. Like he said, he was so retired. Like I thought it was pretty serious.
Yeah.
When I read the second article, I was like, okay, actually, he sounds like he ain't fucking around. And then, literally the next day, the Wonderboy Thompson main event is announced.
I think, as he said in that quote, that it was something interesting that he could not turn down
because he doesn't want to wrestle.
Yeah,
Wonderboy ain't gonna wrestle.
Although, Wonderboy did do that. Like, what was that 3 fights ago against Luque? He tried to take him down.
Wouldn't that be funny if Wonderboy came out and wrestled him?
That shit would be hilarious.
Think he can win a striking battle against Wonderboy Thompson? I can't keep calling like Wonder Man, Wonder Old Man, almost.
Stephen Thompson, you mean?
Stephen Thompson.
Here's the thing. I think, obviously, when you talk about someone like Wonderboy, you're gonna have he's gonna always have a technique advantage, but when it comes to the power, I feel like that's where you're gonna have to look at Kevin Holland's ability to win the fight. I don't see him winning. Is it 5 rounds?
Yeah.
So I don't see him going all 5 rounds. First of all, also like
at least I think it is.
Also, like
it's a main event, so I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Yeah. The only way I see Kevin Holland winning the fight is by a knockout. That's just really what it comes down to.
Well, interesting short-lived retirement. I'm glad to see him fight again, though. But that was something I was just like, fighters are funny.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about boxing, bro. We got some major fights going on this weekend. Let's talk about Clarissa Shields been dabbling her toes in MMA.
Yeah.
You know, what we've been talking about her the past few years has actually been MMA related.
Yeah.
You know, she's won a little, she's lost a little. But she's probably focused on boxing 100% with this. Because this is actually a meaningful fight for her. You know, she's 12-0. And Savannah Marshall's the only woman ever to beat her in any type of boxing at all, which is in the amateur days, she won on points.
Yeah.
Right? So that's an interesting bout. It's scheduled for 10 rounds. It's going to be the undisputed middleweight titles up for grabs. Clarissa has 3. Savannah Marshall's got the WBO title. And another thing that makes this interesting, Paul, is this is a historical all-female fight card coming to you from London.
That's good.
Do you remember when Dana White was talking about doing an all-female fight cards with the ill-fated Zuffa boxing?
Yep. I mean, everything Dana's ever really said when it comes to the boxing world has always been what ifs and possibilities and nothing ever materializing in the end.
Yeah. I'm glad that a real boxing crew is putting this together. I mean, aside from Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 other fights, all female cards. I would encourage everybody to tune in. But this main event, I mean, let's dive into it a little bit. We've got Savannah Marshall. She's the reigning, defending WBO middleweight champion, right? Mm-hmm. She's won her last 7 fights by knockout, which is a stark difference from Shields. correct?
Yeah, I think this is truly where the biggest difference is in the fight. You got Marshall, who's got 10 KOs over her 12-fight career, and you look at Shields, who's got 2 over her 12-fight career.
Yeah, Marshall's significantly bigger. Like when she turned pro, she did so at super middleweight before she
Yeah.
dropped down to middleweight, and you can always tell her size advantage is pretty clear.
Yeah.
Her fights only average 3.6 rounds, which Shields is notorious for going to decisions,
Yeah.
obviously, with 2 of her 12 victories coming by knockout. But she is a masterful boxer, though.
Yeah.
I mean, she was the fastest fighter to win titles in 3 weight classes. She accomplished that in her 10th pro fight. I mean, she has very fast hands. She's a very good ring IQ. She beats Marshall here. There's really no one left for her.
I see them rematching if she beats her, because I do think the way that because what you just said, there's really no one else that you could sell a second fight, because you can go, well, she beat her in amateurs, and then she beat me in pro. I deserve one more shot, and that sells to the fans. You have still, I would say, that the 2 best in the world going at it. But I think this fight's going to be a very, very strange matchup for Shields because of the size difference and just her entire game plan difference. You know what I'm saying? Her being Shields being 5'8", Marshall being 5'11.5", basically 6 foot. And then the differences in how they fight. So when you're fighting a longer fighter and they're powerful, you got to stay away from being on the end of those punches. And I wonder how Clarissa is going to be able to do that, because that could really end up being the difference in the fight. You know what I mean? Those long, rangy punchers who also knock people out are dangerous fighters to fight. And that's why I think that this could be Shields' biggest, not only test, but I think this could be her first loss.
If you look at the current odds, which are liable to change, but you've got Savannah Marshall slightly favored, or Clarissa Shields slightly favored at -125 for an outright victory. But then if you look at, things like KO is +700 for Clarissa, only +275 for Marshall. Win by points is pretty even, really, 120 +190, draws +1200. I mean, it's basically a coin flip.
Yeah.
You've got a slight favorites here and there for various prop bets, but I think the odds makers have it correct. You're picking Marshall. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
KO or points?
I think the way she wins would have to be a KO, because I think in a 10-round bout, Shields would be able to outbox her. So yeah, I would have to say Marshall by KO.
Well, I'm sticking with Shields to unify all 4 belts with a decision victory. I think that her speed and her ring IQ will be enough to keep her out of the danger zone and point up, so to speak.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think this is a good test for her. And
I think it's likely to be something like the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano fight, which is just a real war.
Close, yeah.
It's very close. But that's what I'm seeing, and I think that's the only path for victory for Savannah is a KO. I don't think she wins the decision here.
Yeah,
but I just don't think. I think Clarissa's still too smart. I don't think her ego has gotten so big that she is not taking Savannah very seriously. I mean, she talks a lot of shit, but a lot of it's an act. I think that she's putting in the work. I don't think she's just talking shit.
You know what I wonder? I wonder her doing, because we've seen a lot of times when MMA fighters have boxed in the past, they have a different style, and now her doing mixed martial arts training so often, I truly wonder how different her boxing day to day has changed.
Do you think it would have given her insight and an advantage, or would have harmed her and lead to a disadvantage?
I don't necessarily know, to be honest, because if you look at how, I'll just use him as an example, like Conor McGregor, from when he went from MMA to boxing and back, I felt like we saw a different version of him that was more boxing heavy. So there was more of a boxing style. He was much more square, much more like throwing his punches to knock people out. Whereas like Shields going the other way around, is there a possibility like there's a little bit more of a length in her stance and stuff like that? Because that's two complete different things that you're
Yes.
training. Like you can't walk into an MMA fight and fucking square up like a boxer and just charge forward. Like that just doesn't work. So I know she's not training to do that over at Jackson Wink. So I wonder how much that has changed.
I'm curious about that too, because that was a lot of the MMA world's argument as to why Conor stood a chance against Mayweather was he was going to present angles that Mayweather hadn't seen before because he's coming from a different sport.
Yeah.
Didn't really prove to be that way, although McGregor did give Floyd the toughest fight he's had in quite some time. And now, if you look back on it, especially with these silly little expos he's doing, but I don't know. I'm going to trust Clarissa Shields' dominance, despite only having the 12 fights. She hasn't shown us a ceiling yet.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to see it against Savannah Marshall. I think she wants this trash talking to stop.
Yeah.
I think she feels shitty about that one loss. It's got to eat at her,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she's going to get the victory here.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm going to fire up the second joint here, and let's talk about the big boys, huh?
Actually, let's go Haney Kambosos first.
Do you want to go Haney Kambosos?
I feel like that one's a little less to talk about, and then we'll.
Well, why is this fight happening? First off, because it was a pretty dominant victory for Devin Haney.
Mm-hmm.
It was a decision, but there really was no argument from anyone. So
Yeah.
what's happening here, Paul?
I don't really know, to be honest. I thought it would even be better on Kambosos' side to possibly take a year away, or get one more warm up fight or something, and then do it again, just so you can get your confidence back, maybe fix some of the things in your game on a different fighter, and then try them out on Haney. And for him to just turn around and take this, I don't know if this is a smart career
Well, he had
decision.
this in it was his rematch. His rematch clause specified that he not only get the rematch, but he get it in Australia or New Zealand, wherever it's taking place. So.
Yeah, but there's always step aside.
But
yeah,
it's in Melbourne, Australia, at the Laver Arena. I'm not sure how you say it, on October 16th. So this upcoming weekend. But listen, if you look at some of the experts like Teddy Atlas, all right, Atlas is thinking that it's going to be a lot closer, and that Haney, has a possibility of having learned from his previous loss, studied the fight, and come up with an executable game plan in order to gain his titles back. Now, it's pretty obvious what he did wrong in the first fight. I mean, Haney controlled the fight from the distance with his jab, and he really didn't. Kambosos didn't try to get inside.
He never had an offense started, really.
It seemed like he was almost not afraid. I don't like that term, but he seemed hesitant, very hesitant to pressure Haney. And that's what he needed to do to get in there and land the shots that are going to give him
It's a
victory.
rhythm thing. One thing about Devin Haney's style is it's awkward to fight. Like, he keeps you at this, like, distance and just never lets you get started. You know what I mean? He stifles your offense. And I feel like that was the biggest thing in this fight with Kambosos the first time is it was just all Haney all day. There was nothing ever really that Kambosos was able to get some success with, Well, I think in this fight, this is Haney's fight to lose at this point,
Well, definitely. And I mean, Kambosos, honestly, he's talking about if he loses, he might even retire. It almost seemed like this just sapped the will out of him in a way. And I hate to hear that, and I hope that was just some after-fight remorse from losing his titles.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for a closer bout, but I don't see him having the skill set to get
I think Haney's the dude right now, like at that weight class with all those, because you got a lot of those guys like shifting around. Like you got Lopez lurking in there. You got Shakur Stevenson's about to move up. You got Garcia and Davis getting ready to possibly scrap as well. So that whole like those three weight divisions. I feel like there's so many like little mini super fights in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That can happen. That I feel like, but I do think Haney pretty much wins them all. I think he beats Lopez. I think he beats Stevenson. I think Haney is the best right now. outside of like Crawford and Spence, obviously.
Haney does keep his head up a little bit sometimes. And Kambosos, I mean, he's a dog. He's a good fighter. I'm not trying to sound like he's not worthy here.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a chance if he gets inside. We've seen Haney get hurt in fights with like Jojo Diaz, Linares. Those guys had a lot of volume.
Yeah.
And, you know, Kambosos isn't in the same league as them as far as KO strength goes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's his best shot, you know.
Yeah, true.
And like you mentioned earlier, the timing. If Kambosos gets his timing and his rhythm down this fight, he's got to do that. He's got to pressure him, and we'll see what happens.
Because that was the thing he did with Lopez against Lopez that was so great. Is he just like had a way he was going to fight that fight and fought it the whole way. You know, he threw like I think like almost 400 punches in that fight or something like that. It was crazy. But I think that's what he has to do. He has to put a pace that hopefully Haney can't stop him from setting. You know what I mean?
We'll see. It's surprising to me to hear. I mean, Kambosos is 20-1. Mm-hmm. That's his only loss, and to hear him already talk about possibly retiring should he lose here, even if it's just talk, it's just not the kind of attitude that you want to hear coming from a fighter right now.
Yeah, no.
So we'll see. I'm pretty intrigued by this, even though it's a lot of people in the boxing world are talking that ish about this fight, saying nobody wanted to see it. But we'll see what happens. I'm intrigued still. Ultimately, I'm picking Haney by decision.
I'm picking Haney.
Yeah. Now, let's get to the big dogs.
Yep.
We have Robert, the Nordic Viking, Helenius fighting Deontay Wilder. You know, Helenius is a big dude, too. He's like 6'6", I do believe, 6'5". Very tall. So this isn't going to be another fight where Deontay has that huge size advantage. You know, yeah, he's 6'6" to Deontay 6'7".
Some big
you know, he's 31-3, but the truth is he's been knocked out a couple times already.
Yeah.
And, well, that just presents a problem.
when you're fighting
Deontay Wilder.
Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about with Wilder as well is his like commitment to changing his style up. One thing is he brought his new trainer in his last fight with with Fury.
Yeah.
And everyone was saying that was just like, you know, kind of one of those things that was, you know, he was just bringing him in for that fight to, you know, give him a different look. But now that he's stuck with him, I'm curious to see how much he's changed. Because early in that fight, before he just kind of turned back into his old self, he was doing all the right things against Tyson Fury. Like, he looked like a different Deontay Wilder. And then, obviously, things went south from there. But maybe this is the rebirth of Deontay Wilder in this fight.
It could be. I mean, it's his fight to lose. I mean, look, Helenius is respectable enough as a heavyweight. You know, he's not a total slouch or anything like that. But, I mean, his best wins are arguably, he got a split decision win over, you know, Derek. Yeah, Sorasa. I can never say his fucking name right. Yeah. He's overrated and he sucks. He's not that good. And he got a stoppage win against Konaki. And he's got 3 knockouts. I can't get past the 3 knockouts. He's going to get KO'd.
Yeah.
This is a good tune-up fight for Wilder. But the bigger question for me isn't if Wilder can win this fight. I think if he loses this fight, he should retire.
Yeah.
Because that means he's shot. But we haven't seen losing to Tyson Fury. And those are his only. So he's going to get the victory here. So let's move on to the more intriguing question. Will Usyk give Tyson Fury the finger and pick Deontay Wilder? Because that will put him basically in the number 3 spot behind Fury as the top 3 in the division. Usyk, Fury, Wilder.
And how strange would it be if in the end, after everything that's happened in the last, let's say, 2-3 years, that we end up with Joshua versus Fury and Usyk versus Wilder, and neither fights are for the unified championship. How wild is that? Because all we said, going into all these fights, we just said these fights just have to happen, and then they're going to unify the belts. And everyone was convinced of that. And now we're getting to a point where most likely Tyson Fury is going to end up fighting Joshua, and Deontay Wilder most likely will end up fighting Usyk. And then let's just say one of the two, were to pull an upset, we're never gonna. Basically, what I'm saying is these damn titles are never getting unified. It's like literally like it's gotten crazy.
Well, the problem right here is clearly Usyk. I don't think he wants any part of fucking Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury would take that fight in a heartbeat. He wants a fight so bad he fucking threw that shit at Joshua. I don't think Joshua wants to risk that loss coming off 2 to Usyk. He loses to Fury. He's done as a contender in a lot of people's eyes after that. However, we've got Andy Ruiz, who is strongly campaigning for a fight against Wilder.
I don't think he wants that smoke.
No, he had enough trouble with Ortiz, honestly.
He got knocked down by Chris Ariuzzo, too.
Indeed. Could you imagine this scenario? This is a possibility.
What's up?
Wilder wins, okay, gets to fight with Usyk, knocks little Usyk out. Tyson fights fucking Wilder again for all 4 belts.
That's literally, I think, the only thing that
beats him.
I think that's probably what's going to end up happening.
We wind up with Wilder Fury 4, and then we'll forever hear about how Fury cheated again for the 18th time or whatever it is when he fights Wilder.
Or what if this happens? Remember, before Fury came back, the whole world was clamoring for Joshua and Wilder to fight. That was the biggest fight before Fury, when Fury was still on the back burner. For like a good about 2 years, people were talking about that fight, and now it still's on the table.
I don't know. I don't like any of this shit. I just need Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk to quit fucking around, make that fight. Wilder can wait in the wings if he thinks he's got a shot at the winner. Wait for that. We should quit fucking around with Joshua, and whatever Usyk is doing needs to just fight the man.
Yeah,
for fuck's sake.
I agree, but this is the boxing world, and everything is bound to go wrong.
True enough. Well, that's the end of this joint. I think that's about the end of the show.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thanks to our sponsor, Binoid CBD, SWATMMA.com. Click the cool stuff button. Follow the links for 20% off legal hemp, THC, Delta 9, and other cannabinoid products.
Also, you can click the link in the description and then head over to SWATMMA.com, click the gear button, support the podcast. Then, if you want to go to Instagram, go to @SWATMMA podcast, follow it.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.